Hey everyone, and as I always say, welcome to Fun in Miniature. What we got here is the Battle of Monongahela, which took place in July 1755 on the 9th. This is going to be a quick strike video, as postulated by Little Wars TV, so I hope you enjoy. In 1755, the drums of war have been beating for almost a year. At the time in question, the North American continent was divided between three major powers: the British, the French, and the Spanish. The coming conflict will determine which of these major powers will hold control of the continent. In pursuit of its ambitions, the British government sent Major General Edward Braddock to the American colonies to conduct a campaign against the French. In support of this, they sent two British regular units and also instructed the colonies to raise their own militias to support the expedition. Braddock's plans started out fairly well. He would send 3 consecutive strikes into French Canada, one of which he himself would lead, against Fort Duquesne, which George Washington had failed to take the previous year. However, just as he was about to arrive at Fort Duquesne, disaster struck. As he was ascending a ridge just before reaching his destination, 900 French, Indians, and Canadians ambushed him, killing him and the greater portion of his force and sending the rest running off into the woods. Will our game mimic history? Will Braddock live? I guess we will see. Next on the agenda, the order of battle. Alright, order of battle. On the left we have the British, and on the right we have the French. The British, as you can see over here, they've got 2 brigades, and the French only have 1. We'll start with them. You have a unit of French Marines right here. The commander, Bougainville. Right here you have the mission tribes, so to speak. They were led on the day by French prior, from what I remember. And then you have the Western Allies as well. Next, along the line, you have the advanced guard for the British. You have a 6-pounder and a 12-pounder, backed by these 2 units right here. They're under the command of Horatio Gates. Some of you who know your Revolutionary War history may know him. You have the British commander right here, Sir Edward Braddock. And then over here you have the regular British units. You have 2 regular British regiments, as well as right here you have the Virginia Regiment, along with more artillery. And then commanding the Virginia Regiment is the man himself, George Washington, right there. Time to explain the general layout of the terrain, as well as the plans for either side and the rules I've set to govern them. Down here, the British enter the field. Their objective will be to march along this track down to where it exits over yonder. That is where Fort Duquesne is located, right off the table. Their objective is to make it through the French ambush with enough of their force to be able to take the fort. As you can see, the entire map is entirely covered in woods, and as such, that does give the Indians the ability to ambush at some point. The French, along with their Indian allies, will enter right here. As I mentioned, their fort is basically right in here. They'll enter here and will be marching along the same track with the objective to at some point ambush the British as they move, well, in the opposite direction. Now, as for the rules, the British will not be allowed to respond French actions until the first shot is taken. They're required to continue marching whether they see French or not on the table. As such, they will definitely march straight into an ambush whether they want to or not. Now, on the other hand, since I am playing the game solo, I am using a sort of blind system that I developed. I'll take 2 stands from each of the Indian units and will then throw them out, and we'll roll a dice for each of those to see which one ends up hitting first, and whichever one hits first, I'll count that as an actual unit on the table. Now on to the actual battle. Well, both sides are moving, as you can see. Here's the French and Indians, and down there is the British. I'll come back to you whenever there's actual fighting going on. Well, the fighting's begun. The Indians threw themselves out on the flanks and have started mowing down the British, as well as the French regulars have opened fire and are holding the track against the advance of the British as well. I guess we'll find out what happens next, but who knows? It's still up in the air. Youch! The British aren't gonna like this one. The French regulars roll a double 6 and as a result manage to wound Horatio Gates. Fairly historical. He was historically wounded here. Still though, not good for the advanced guard. I guess we'll see what happens next. Well, as you can see, the British are now responding in a general form. The rear division is coming forward, led by Braddock. That gray circle is the commander of the front division, who's been slightly wounded this turn and is out of commission till next turn. We'll see what happens. The ambush seems to be going well, but maybe the rear division can turn things around. We'll see. Well, the fight continues. The same British commander was wounded yet again this turn. Should that mean that he's dead? I don't really know. I guess we'll continue on as if he's just wounded 2 turns in a row. Anyway, the British take a morale check this turn due to the loss of one of their cannons. I'll come back to you with that. Well, as you can see, there was a mass panic of the front brigade. First, one of the British cannons absolutely dispersed. After that, another one dispersed in the morale phase, and after that, well, it was just dominoes after that. The entire brigade broke, except for one unit, which then proceeded to leave the field in mass panic with everything else. All that's left is the rear brigade. I think, though, that we can probably call it here. The British are defeated, same as in history, and Edward Braddock actually lived, unlike in real life. Anyway, you all have a good one.